Well, welcome. Thank you for attending our first public education seminar. This is the first of 4 by the Department of Infrastructure, City of Hamilton. My name is Jim Williams. I'm the Public Works Director for the city, and I've worked here since March of 2016. This seminar tonight is going to be all about public right-of-ways. Like I said, this is the first of 4, so the next one will be February 27th, and we'll talk about utility easements. After that, March 13th, we'll talk about stormwater, and then March 27th, we'll do a water services and customer service overview. Now, what I'd like to do tonight is that we're going to basically have this presentation about right-of-ways in 2 separate sections. The first one is a right-of-way overview, and then the last section is going to be right-of-way construction projects. So with that, after the first session, I ask if there's any questions that we hold them to the end of the first session, and then the questions that may get generated for the second session, we'll hold those questions to the end. So here we go. Right-of-way definition. The right of a vehicle or pedestrian to proceed uninterruptedly in a lawful manner in the direction in which it or the individual is moving in preference to another vehicle or pedestrian approaching from a different direction into its or individual's path. It's also used as a general term denoting land, property, or the interest therein, usually in the configuration of a strip acquired for or devoted to transportation purposes. When used in this context, right-of-way includes the roadway, the shoulders or berm, the ditch, and slopes extending to the right-of-way limits under the control of the state or local authority. In the case here is the City of Hamilton. This picture gives you a good illustration of the right-of-way. As you can see, the main portion of the street where the vehicles are going down, you can see the curb and the sidewalk are all inclusive of the right-of-way. Now, we get a lot of questions here at City Hall about vegetation maintenance in the right-of-way. We have a codified ordinance that I believe was passed in the 1980s that essentially, this ordinance 91502Q and 91505B, which explains the responsibility of the maintenance of plantings in or overhanging the public way. In that, the public way means any public street, highway, public easement, sidewalk, alley, curb, lawn, or public waterway, and includes the entire width of any right-of-way that when any part thereof is open to use of the public as a matter of right for purposes of vehicular or pedestrian traffic. Now, what this means is, based off the codified ordinance, the owners of the property must maintain any of that vegetation in the right-of-way. That's the way it's set today. And it shall be, that last bullet, it shall be the duty of all property owners and occupants to trim and remove plantings in the public ways abutting their properties. This will be along all city streets as well as along all alleyways throughout Hamilton. This is an example of the overgrown vegetation in an alleyway here in Hamilton. As you can see, if cars drive through there or Rumpke, it's a problem. So what needs to happen here is that each one of those property owners needs to maintain that vegetation and basically cut it back from the right-of-way. Right-of-way site clearance. This is a common problem, especially within South Erie Boulevard, which is Route 4, where we have a lot of our car sales businesses. Essentially, sometimes they park too close to the sidewalk and interfere with the right-of-way. We must maintain proper site distance. And if we don't, then it creates a safety problem. And proper maintenance of the right-of-way equals increased safety for our citizens. So this is a very important point. If we don't maintain, cut basically vegetation from blocking signs and visibility, then we can create a a very unsafe environment for our citizens. Now, with this, I'd like to move and transition to another portion of the right-of-way which impacts our snow removal operations here in the city. So, to do that, I want to just kind of explain a little bit about what we do when we do snow operations. This is a big deal because we're coming through the winter of 2018, and hopefully we're through it. But if not, this kind of gives you an idea of some of the things that we have to take in consideration when we do snow operation removal in the right-of-way. So, pavement temperature is more meaningful than air temperature. Could vary 10 to 15 degrees from air temperature. Pavement type is important as well. And so all those factors are considered in the way we remove snow within our city. Snow, as far as the melting time of salt, you know we use primarily salt within our removal because you see it in our salt trucks, but we also use calcium chloride, especially when temperatures dictate that. And as you can see there, at 0 degrees, it takes a salt mixed with calcium chloride about 30 minutes to melt snow. Now, in the right-of-ways, we do have a strategy associated with removal of snow. Our strategy is primaries are first, secondaries are next, parking lots, city-owned, follow that, and then sidewalks, city-owned, follow that. The primary streets are plowed curb to curb, and then the plow speed typically is about 25 miles per hour per truck. As we move through the winter conditions, we move straight into what we consider to be our street cleaning season. And that usually lasts from March through about the middle of November. And this here is a picture of our newest street sweepers from Global. Street sweeping. Street sweeping facilitates our storm water management. And that's something I really wanted you to really pay attention to, because if we didn't clean the streets, then essentially a lot of the debris that accumulates from trash and other means would end up in our waterways. So street sweeping is actually collected, and then we haul it to our lift station, our transfer station, which is then hauled to the dump. So we currently have 4 street sweepers in operation. Three sweepers operate every day, Monday through Friday during season. And then basically we have 1 in redundancy. The 4th sweeper can be used to facilitate any issues that we may have associated with one of our events, like some of the music events that we have along the river, or some of our events like Operation Pumpkin. This gives you an example of the routes that those sweepers cover over a 2-week period. We have 10 routes, and these are the same routes that apply to our snow removal operation. So the same coverage based off the same routes. What you see here is the street sweeping routes by day for week 1 and week 2. So now we've moved into the fall, and we have leaf pickup and removal operations that happen again in the right-of-way. So with this, you can see that we have 2 different types. One is a manual type that you can see there, where we have 2 men basically working the vacuum unit that's trails behind the truck. And then we have the newer unit to the right, which basically the laborer never has to leave the cab of the truck. Everything is handled through mechanical operation of the vacuum. Historically, like I said, this starts the last week of October, and we run about 2 to 3 routes scheduled per week. But through our 311 system, we're actually still collecting leaves right now as we speak. Our 311 system is very comprehensive, and it lets us know what tasks we need to complete. So please continue to use that, and it helps us evaluate our own performance. Our goal for leaf removal is to be done by Christmas, but as you know, we got snow right around that time frame, and we've had pretty much snow up until last week. So We'll be also collecting leaves and street sweeping beginning here shortly, as long as weather permitting. So with that, I'd like to move into the next portion of our presentation tonight, which is concrete curb and sidewalk, and that will be Mr. Pat Yingling, a professional engineer from our engineering department. Thank you, Pat.
Jim. Appreciate it. How's everyone doing? My name is Pat Yingling. I'm an engineer with the City of Hamilton. I'm going to discuss today concrete curbs, sidewalks, and drive aprons and property owners' responsibilities. City of Hamilton Ordinance 52106 we'll be discussing, and what is considered a hazard or disrepair, and also how does a concrete assessment program work. City of Hamilton 52106 puts the responsibility for maintaining the concrete curbs, sidewalks onto the abutting property owner. Common hazards for sidewalks and driveways consists of is it sunk and trapping water. This can cause ice in the wintertime, can also cause algae on the sidewalks in the summertime if it stays constantly wet. We're also looking for is the concrete raised a 1/2 inch or more, which could cause someone to trip. This is a guideline handed down to us from the Department of Justice through the American Disabilities Act. We also look for is there missing pieces or cracks or otherwise is in bad condition. Here's an example of a sidewalk block that has multiple cracks. You can see sections of the concrete just popping out. This would be considered a hazard. Here's a common hazard throughout the city in our older neighborhoods where we have a lot of trees that heave the sidewalk, causing tripping hazards. Here's a smaller hazard, but still meets that 1/2 inch tripping hazard requirement. 1/2 inch is a pretty small amount in reality, about the thickness of a pen. Some things that we check for when it comes to curb and gutter includes is it pushed up or down, pushed out so that the water does not drain correctly down the roadway, causing water issues. Is it missing or cracked or in otherwise bad condition? Here's an example of a piece of curb where it's got multiple cracks in it, chipped out, just in bad condition. Part of the concrete assessment program, every year the City of Hamilton has a resurfacing project that includes concrete assessment. We send out property owners notification letters that state you have so many sidewalk blocks and so many lineal feet of curb that are considered in disrepair. Once a property owner receives a letter, they have the option of doing the work privately or have the City of Hamilton perform the work, and then it will be assessed to the property. When we say assessed to the property, that means the City of Hamilton will send them a bill and they have the option of putting on their property taxes or paying it outright at that time. If it's rolled onto the property taxes, you have 5 years to make the payments over the property taxes. Can a property owner request to have their concrete assessed? As it sits right now, a property owner can only have the concrete assessed if it's part of our resurfacing program. So if you're one of the streets that we're doing for that year, then you can have more concrete assessed, or we will notify you for what's just needed. But we don't allow a property owner to just contact us and say, I would like to have it fixed by the city and have it assessed. I'll now be turning it over to the Transportation and Traffic Division, Scott Hoover.
Hello, my name is Scott Hoover. I'm the Traffic Operations Manager for the City of Hamilton. My responsibilities include conducting various traffic safety studies, traffic signal timings, sight distance complaints at intersections, parking studies, parking lot rental and leasing, handicap parking on city streets, construction and festival road closure plan and design. I'm also responsible for the city the traffic sign shop, traffic signal shop, parking meter operations, and parking garage operations. First division to speak of is the traffic sign division. There's 2 employees in this division that are responsible for the city's approximate 11,000 traffic signs. They're also responsible for installing all pavement markings, as well as road closures and lane closures for festivals and events. If you encounter a damaged sign or faded sign, The two numbers listed are not emergency numbers. One is a normal business hours and one is a after hours. Of course, the 311 system would still apply to this division. Emergencies, always call 911. Examples of an emergency for the sign division would be a sign was hit and sticking into the roadway or into the sidewalk, which would cause a hazard. The traffic signal division consists of 2 employees as well. They're responsible for inputting traffic signal timings, the maintenance of approximately 100 of the city's traffic signals. They're also responsible for the installation of all new traffic signals, as well as airport beacons. Examples of malfunctions for the traffic signal division would be the signal timing is not what you're used to on your daily commute. If you encounter something like this or a bulb out, you're encouraged to call the 2 numbers listed, and again, 311 system, as well as emergency, you would want to call 911. Examples of the emergency would be the signal's on flash or the signal is completely out. Those are the examples of a 911 call. The third and fourth divisions, parking meter division and the parking garage operations. There's 3 employees in those divisions. They're responsible for parking meter maintenance, collect meter revenue, enforce parking laws. They rent spaces and maintain the garage as well as collect fees for the garage. For meter malfunction and damage, again, the numbers are listed. For the parking garage, if someone's parked illegally in your space, you're encouraged to call the numbers listed as well. Emergencies, if you encounter any type of emergencies as far as being stuck in the garage, 911 would be the call for that as well. Next up is Alan Messer to talk about stormwater.
My name is Alan Messer. I'm an engineer on staff here at the city. I'm going to talk about stormwater, specifically stormwater within the right-of-way. Starting out, what is stormwater? When we refer to stormwater, we're typically referring to what's stormwater runoff, and that is essentially any precipitation that falls in the ground and doesn't soak in, flows across the ground. Hamilton, it's been excuse me, a very old city. In the early 1800s, when Hamilton and that time Rossville were founded, most of the stormwater was conveyed by open channels, open ditches, flowed through the roadways. As things progressed in development, they enclosed those ditches. In the mid-1800s, and that image you see up there on the left is an old stone sewer that was constructed, we believe, probably mid-1800s, pre-Civil War. Some of those are still in operation today. It's amazing the craftsmanship that went into those. Today's stormwater standards, its typical installation would be concrete, plastic pipe. There's certain standards that we design to today, industry standards, as far as the sizing. And also today there's what's called stormwater quality requirements, and that's a federal regulation that says that you're to essentially slow down the water so that the pollutants and sediments settle out before it reaches a natural water course. Here in Hamilton, most of our stormwater eventually ends up in the Great Miami River, and all of us are responsible to keep trash and debris out of that water. The image up here on the right of the slide shows another typical section similar to what Jim showed earlier. Shows some of the stormwater facilities that are within the right-of-way. One that people often don't think of is the ditch. The roadside ditches are maintained by city crews. Now, ditches on private property are another matter, but some roads here within the city are served solely by ditches or by a combination of curb and ditches. So the curb also is a stormwater facility. Now, the curb, as Pat mentioned earlier, is the property owner's responsibility to maintain. The city does do the the street sweeping, the other activities to keep that clean, but the ongoing maintenance of that does belong with the property owner. The curb inlets or catch basins, people call them, are city maintained if they're within the right-of-way. Those that fall within private property, parking lots and that, are typically privately maintained and the property owner's responsibility. A newer feature that we have that started in the late 2000s is installing sump lines, and those sump line collectors are essentially there to collect people's discharge from their basement sump pumps. Some of the property owner's responsibility I touched on be any facilities outside the right-of-way, so any pipes, creeks. A lot of times people assume, well, a creek, it's a big body of water. It's not mine to maintain. Typically, if your property encompasses that creek, that is your responsibility. Our crews do get in and address like major log jams and things that are going to cause immediate harm or danger, but the ongoing maintenance of that is the property owners. Connections to the public facilities within the right-of-way would be the property owners as well. So even though it's in the right-of-way, if the sole purpose of that, say, pipe, it could be a pipe between a downspout and the storm sewer, or between the sump pump and the sump pump collector or storm sewer, that would be the property owner's responsibility. And one that creates some confusion are driveway culverts. I mentioned that the ditch lines were maintained by the city. The drive culverts, say a pipe that water enters on one end, exits on the other, and the sole purpose of that pipe is so that a driveway can cross it or to level a front yard. That would also be the property owner's responsibility. We get a lot of questions. People just assume, well, it's a pipe and it's in the right-of-way. The city takes care of it. Lastly, I want to say that anything that property owner does as far as discharging stormwater cannot create a public nuisance. And where we typically see that situation is a sump pump that discharges near the right-of-way or into the right-of-way, crosses a sidewalk, or dumps onto the curb and creates an icing situation, or algae in the summertime. It's the property owner's responsibility to properly dispose of that water. That may mean running it down the street to the nearest catch basin or taking it to a ditch or somewhere that it otherwise is properly disposed of. Some of the common, or an indicator of a problem within the stormwater system. See up there, the upper left picture is an example of flooding within the street. Some water standing on the sides of the road would be expected, maybe 6 or 8 feet wide, but 4 to 5 inches deep would be a normal occurrence. Anything that's over the curb or wider than that, or something to this extent, would be something that we'd want reported to the city so that we could look into the situation. Sinkholes, the lower left-hand corner there is an example of one that we had, I believe, on Eden Park Drive. That's a good indication that something's wrong beneath. A lot of times if a pipe has a hole in it, will suck some of the dirt down and create a sinkhole. Sometimes the pipes themselves actually collapse, and that's something we'd want to investigate right away. Any kind of surcharged structure. What surcharge means is, say a manhole, it's difficult to see there in the upper right corner, but that's actually water pushing up through the holes in a manhole in the street. In that particular location, I think near Main and Lawn. If the water's coming back up through a catch basin or through the lid of a manhole, some cases, something that need to be reported right away if it actually pushes a manhole off, or manhole lid off, which can occur. That's the kind of thing that you'd want to report immediately 911 or to the city's after-hours call number. The lower right-hand corner there is what we would consider excessive erosion. That was a roadside ditch. I believe that one was actually a county route that we went and investigated and reported to them, and they took care of. And then pollution. Like I said earlier, stormwater quality is one of the things that we're looking to achieve. anything that's got a strange odor or color or oily sheen, we'd like that reported here to the city. And what the residents can do to help us with this would be any minor issues. We encourage use of the city's 311 system, which is available on the city website, and that helps us record it. Please include as much detail as possible, photos if possible. If it's an emergency, obviously call 911. Some of those situations I mentioned earlier, like a manhole lid that's off or excessive flooding in the roadway or somebody being at harm. And then if it's kind of urgent but not an emergency, or someone's not comfortable with using the 311 system, our after-hours calling number is 785-7550. The other things that property owners can do to help us would be to keep things clean, and that would be by proper disposal of pollutants. By pollutants, we mean oil, paint, common household cleaners. If you go to the Butler County Recycling Solid Waste website at butlercountyrecycles.org, they've got different programs where they actually collect some of those waste, or they'll list places that will accept them. And Jim mentioned earlier that we do the street sweeping and the leaf collection. You can also compost your leaves and your yard clippings. It's not good to basically spray those into the roadway where they end up in the storm sewer. They wash too many organics into the streams, and it's not good for the aquatic nature of the stream. And then pet waste, simply cleaning up your yard like you would at the yard park or at the dog park or anything else, properly disposing of that. With that, that concludes our presentation. We'll open it up now to questions that the audience has for any of us on any of the subjects covered here in session 1. Thank you.
Thanks, Alan. Are there any questions about anything? Yes, sir.
I've got a couple of them. We talked about the traffic division with signaling.
Yes, sir.
Is there an Ohio state law about motorcycles having to wait a certain amount of time because of their cycle doesn't trigger the signaling? I know Indiana, that has I believe, a 3-minute wait time or something like that, and then you're allowed to go ahead and proceed.
Sir, I'm going to repeat your question so we can capture it on the tape. Essentially, you want to know if there's a Ohio law that addresses the signaling, a timing associated with motorcycle traffic. I'm going to let Scott respond.
So with regards to traffic signal detection, in the city of Hamilton and a lot of other places in Ohio, there's different modes of detection. There's camera detection, radar detection, as well as inductive loop detection, which is basically a wire in the pavement. Video detection as well as radar will pick up a motorcycle that's in that proper zone via left turn, right turn, through movement. The inductive loops sometimes is difficult to pick up a motorcycle. Depends on the sensitivity of the loop and how it's set up in our controller in our system. We do occasionally get complaints about motorcycles not being detected, and we do respond to that very quickly and adjust that sensitivity to help a motorcycle be detected, which sometimes they are not. I'm not aware of a state law regarding detection of motorcycles. I know that they are difficult to detect at times, and again, we do respond to those complaints extremely quickly. Thank you.
Scott, I have another one for you.
Okay. No, it's okay.
Stop signs at intersections.
Yes.
Subdivision I'm in, we just got, I would say last year, a stop sign at Alexander Drive in North Washington.
So you're referring to a T intersection, correct?
Yes.
Okay. There's different interpretation with regards to stop signs at T intersections. State law says you're to stop at a T intersection when you're on the bottom leg of the T. It's my opinion that stop signs should be installed on the leg of the T for safety. Again, different people have different views, but it is our policy, and we have ramped up our stop sign installation at T intersections in the last couple of years.
Because right now, I live at Alexander Drive and Beckett Lane. There's no stop sign.
It's coming.
There's none up in the other divisions.
Again, there are a lot of T intersections that do not have stop signs. We do have budget constraints that don't allow us to hit every intersection, every T intersection in the city. Typically, how we approach the stop signs at T intersections is when we have work orders in areas. If there is not a stop sign on the leg of the T, the intersections adjacent to that, we do install them. That's how we're attacking that at this point.
And I have one more for you,
Sure.
which is Eaton Street and Martin Luther King Boulevard headed east going west.
Heading.
So it's right where Beckett Paper and.
Sure. Heaton at MOK, correct?
Correct. You removed that second stoplight, which is a fantastic idea. I'm glad it happened. But right now, you have two lanes. You have a left turn lane, which is onto the left, and then the right turn.
This is for westbound Heaton Street.
Correct. Be right turn or straight. I'm willing to bet that 90% of your traffic in the right-hand lane turns right. And you get one or two cars that go to turn left.
There's actually a traffic, we're actually getting ready to do a study for that to make sure that that is correct. I believe that that is correct, but we're getting the data to confirm that, and that will most likely be a change.
Okay, because I would like to see straight or left and the right-hand.
There actually, yeah, we've already got a plan even for the pavement markings to be altered for that. We're just waiting on the data just to confirm that.
And then for everybody in here, since it looks like city employees, I'm going to give the snow removal people a commendation because they've done a fantastic job, and I really appreciate that.
Thank you, sir, for that wonderful comment about the snow removal operation. Those guys, I can tell you, they put on 12-hour shifts, 12 on, 12 off, and it's exhausting work, but they do the best they can. And the goal is to get back home safely each night with no damage to any parked vehicles. So that's a key.
Great job, Landmark.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions? Well, that will bring our seminar to conclusion. I want to thank all the participants that are here tonight from our engineering department and our residents, as well as some of our city staff. So thank you very much, and God bless.